Good evening and welcome back to 31 Horror Nights. It's October 24th and tonight's movie is Hell House LLC 3, Lake of Fire. They talked about the Lake of Fire a little bit in the second movie. I'm going to assume that means a portal to hell, because when they were down in the basement during the climax, the wall gave away and there was this red light and smoke coming out of a hole in the wall. So I'm going to guess that's what that's in reference to. This movie looks like it is just going to be a retread of the first movie. I know I said that about the second movie. This one, way more so. It's opening night, the hotel is reopening for a spooky attraction, and a bunch of people are coming. The only difference I could see is that this time, the person running it knows exactly what's going to happen and is, purposely trying to lead people into their graves. Well, actually, apparently that was the case in the first movie, too. We just didn't know that at the time. But the main villain guy who's running this new haunted house or whatever it is, Russell Wynn, the guy who directed the second documentary, and I clocked that. I saw his name was on the guest list, and I thought, okay, he's a member of the cult too. And I promise you, I didn't look up anything about the third movie before I said that yesterday. I'm an autist who likes horror movies. I don't know what else to tell you. I'm getting the impression that this is supposed to, end this story arc. There are two more movies, but I think it's a prequel and then, a rebirth movie starting a new chapter. But this was originally planned to be a trilogy, and hopefully this movie will wrap things up. After seeing yesterday's movie, I have been able to temper my expectations. I'm not expecting the quality of the first film, but hopefully it's not bad. However, the trailer, which one could even mistake for being the trailer for the first movie, is not giving me a lot of hope. Considering the fact that the fourth movie is a prequel, and I think it's not even about the Abaddon Hotel, I'm guessing that this movie either has a, solid good ending or a solid bad ending. But either way, we've gotten past all the exposition. Let's see where things go from here. I'll be right back. Okay, so the third movie was better than the second, but still not as good as the first. However, it actually did do a pretty good job of wrapping everything up and was able to surprise me in a good way. I'm going to give Hell House LLC 3 an 8 out of 10. This one definitely seemed to be leaning more on the side of horror than the second film did, while also having better characterization, better acting, and is better at telling its story. But it's also not as scary as the first movie was. My vibe from the trailer was correct. It was kind of a retread of the first film, but instead of a haunted house attraction, it's a play, but there's no stage. The audience is just there in the room. And for some reason, the audience wears creepy masks. Don't really know why that is. However, unlike in the first movie, it's not the crew itself that's documenting the days leading up to their opening night. Instead, they invited someone from the local news station. It's not the same lady as it was in the second movie. It's apparently someone new. Maybe they couldn't get the actress for another shoot. And she agrees to do this along with her cameraman. And there was this really bizarre thing with the cameraman at the beginning of the movie, because he wasn't, being interviewed by the documentarians. The news lady was, and one of her producers was also interviewed, but the cameraman was not, so I assumed that he died. And I also noticed that in the scene where they give some of the cast members camcorders to record anything they want for this documentary, they, make it a point to keep the cameraman out of frame. We know he's in the room. We see the POV from his camera, but whenever it's somebody else's camera, he's always right out of frame. So that made me think there was going to be, a twist in this movie where when we finally see that cameraman's face, it's I don't know, someone's brother or something, but no, he just appears a couple scenes later. It seemed deliberate, but if that was deliberate misdirection, that is so oddly pointless. Anyway, this movie jumps into the horror a lot quicker than the second movie does. There are a few really good scenes, there are a few really good scares, and there are a few new tricks that they use. One is, and I'm sure it didn't originate with this movie, but I just think of it as the Leah Sullivan technique, where the camera turns to face the character and they can't see what the camera is seeing, and there's something right behind them. And there's also a point where the camera is put down on a lazy Susan and it just spins around the room, sort of like that one part in Paranormal Activity 3. However, I do think that the best executed part of this movie is its story, particularly one genuinely well executed twist. And it didn't feel random or forced or a little too convenient like some of the reveals in the second movie. This one actually made everything make more sense, while not being obvious, but also they didn't beat you over the head with it during the reveal. So I guess to conclude this part of the review, I still don't think anything would have been lost if Hell House LLC had just stayed one standalone movie, but the two sequels certainly didn't make it worse. And the third movie absolutely finishes what the second movie started. So if you're still interested after the second movie, I can't see any reason why you wouldn't want to see the third one. Alright, now I want to talk about some spoilers. The central character for Hell House LLC 3 is definitely Russell Wynn, who is the lead of the troupe that is doing the play in the Abaddon Hotel. There's definitely a lot of parallels between him and Alex, but whereas Alex seemed just like a normal guy, Russell is definitely like this eccentric billionaire that is also probably crazy, but he's rich and he's ruggedly handsome, so people just follow him. He also has this giant scar over his left eyes that is obviously a prosthetic. I suppose that would make more sense in, like, out-of-kit options because it has to be in exactly the same place every time it's applied, but, I mean, you could tell it was a prosthetic because I don't think scars are that raised up off the face. But I shouldn't be complaining about that when during the climax there definitely is some effects that sort of reminded me of Hostile Dimensions. And while it's slowly revealed throughout the first film that Alex is hiding something, you know that Russell's up to something from the beginning. Even if you didn't catch the references to him in the second movie or what any of them meant, it's very obvious that he wants this event to happen at this place, at this time, with as many people as possible. It doesn't matter how much paranormal activity happens here. It doesn't matter how many people died here. Opening night of this play will happen at the Abaddon Hotel on October 1st. So obviously, he's in with Andrew Tully, the cult leader. He wants more sacrifices for the Lake of Fire. He even arranged beforehand to have all of his assets liquidated and the money donated to various charities on midnight that night. And maybe it's because of how not subtle a lot of the reveals in the second movie were, but throughout the entire film, I did not question this. There was no point where I considered the idea that this may have actually just been a giant red herring. And it was. Because at the very end, once the, portal to hell is opened and the cult has taken over the hotel, a bunch of patrons are dead, people are running and screaming in terror, he fights against Andrew Tully. The ground opens and fire comes out and the house crumbles, and those were the really terrible effects I mentioned earlier, but the house goes up in flames, and somehow, the next morning, everybody we thought was dead was alive and well in the cornfield right next to the Abaddon Hotel. And they ask Vanessa about this, and she says that she remembers something that the local priest that they talked to a couple times in the movie had told her. If a portal to hell had been opened, a human would not be able to close it. That would require an angel. And they don't dwell on that, they just sort of move on, but that does turn everything upside down. And suddenly, all the things that just felt like plot contrivances make more sense in the context of Russell being a double agent. And they also mentioned the fact that a few years ago he had gotten into a car accident, and at the hospital, his heart had stopped for 2 minutes. And then the end of the movie is really interesting. We cut back to the original Hell House crew, waking up in the hotel. It's daytime, no one else is there, but they can't leave the hotel. And that's when Russell walks up and says that he's sorry about what happened to them, but they all need to move on. And when they ask him who he is, he just says he's the one who closed the door that they helped open. So I guess the implication of that is that this is, I don't know, the afterlife or purgatory or something, and they need to move on to the other side. So after a few minutes of them comforting each other over what happened, they move on. I already said that I was predicting this movie to either have a solidly bad ending or a solidly good ending. And not even in terms of, the quality of the movie, in terms of, the good guys win or the bad guys win. This was, unexpectedly, a solidly good ending. And is it kinda schmaltzy? Sure. But I do have to give it credit for setting this up very well. I actually can't think of the last time where the big twist in the horror movie, the grand master plan, was one done by the good guys. And what's so crazy, I don't know if this is a coincidence or if Stephen Cognetti actually 5D chessed this, but this twist works so well in part because of how ridiculous the twists in the second movie were. And that's just crazy to me, whether that was intentional or not. So overall, this movie's good, the trilogy's good. It would have been, on average, better if it was just the first movie, but I'm not really complaining. It didn't feel like they were just milking this IP dry. Although, then again, there are 2 more movies that I haven't seen yet, so maybe I'm speaking too soon. But in the meantime, I am satisfied with this trilogy. All right, I'll see you tomorrow for the next movie in the Hell House LLC franchise.